It's my honor and privilege to be here with you on Comments with Dr. James Haney. I've been on the show once or twice before, and I've lived long enough to be able to enjoy you for the better part of my life, which is a great thing. You're one of my professors in school, and just commend you for 3 decades of providing service to the community through this particular show. So through that same 3-decade period, I've had several manifestations of evolution in my life. I started out, grew up in metro schools in Nashville, Tennessee, and I graduated from metro schools just barely. I was one of those kids who had a lot of potential, but I didn't always have focus. So when I barely got out of school, barely got into college, I was able to get into Tennessee State and meet professors like you, W. Dewey Cox, H. Devereaux Brady, and people who inspired me. So I took on a career in communications and majored in that. Ended up being Student Government Association president and had a great run there with activism and learning to be socially conscious. That's where it was put in me at that age, to be socially conscious. So from there, I founded a newspaper called The Third Eye. And for 11 years, I ran The Third Eye, talked on national public radio. I had a great little crew of dreamers who said that they were going to do great things one day, including my older brother, Greg, who was at the time in law school. Friend of mine named Van Jones, who at the time was talking about going to law school and changing the world and being a commentator. And we look back years later, my brother's the chair of Afro-American Studies at Howard, and Van Jones is the co-host of CNN's Crossfire. So I think we came around a little group of people who did some pretty good things. I did that for 11 years and then transitioned into professional theater, ran a theater company called Amun-Ra, which presented works everywhere from the Smithsonian to the National Black Theater Festival. And in that course of 11 years, wrote about 11 plays, toured the country nationally, did a few films, and all the while wanted to do things that dealt with uplifting people spiritually. So I became a licensed and ordained minister, became initiated in African traditional systems, and found a way to want to pull those things together. So now, at this space where I am now, I am a founder and chief spiritual officer of a group called the Infinity Fellowship, which is an interfaith gathering in Nashville, Tennessee, where we focus on the common elements in different faith traditions that spur people towards activism and healing issues of social justice.
And you're also involved with, as the title today indicates, housing for the homeless. And
yes, sir.
Why don't you, over the next couple of minutes, give us some information in reference to how you became involved in housing for the homeless and something about some of your experiences dealing with the homeless population. And I won't have you to talk about the time you spent sitting on top of a school in reference, but you go on.
Yeah, it seems that I'm drawn to these extreme experiences. I don't know what that is, but when I was in college, we took over the administration building at TSU, and that was the sit-in of 1990. It was became a world well-known movement where we shut down the administration building, we took over, had people on the roof, and it resulted after 14 days of that and a hunger strike that was 9 days inside that, $120 million being spent on Tennessee State. So if you see the campus improvements out there, that's not how it looked when I was in school, but we very much had a movement that did that. You fast forward that to sitting on a roof for 9 days to raise money and awareness for a theater program that I was doing for young people in the inner city at Amun-Ra, where we raised almost $40,000 for scholarships for young people. I pitched a tent and lived on the roof there. So we fast forward that to last year, or this past summer actually, when I lived in a micro home, which is a 60 square foot full house, but 60 square feet, which means, 6 by 10 on an auto trailer that's been refurbished. And I lived in that for 45 days to raise the money that we needed to build what's now known as Infinity Village.
Okay, and what we're going to do, Reverend Carr, is to take this commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the housing for the homeless, as the topic indicates today. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. the second segment. I would imagine these are the images that.
We'll come out to you guys on camera like normal, and then we'll pop up the images once you get into it.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, and that'll give us an opportunity to start, off on the homeless. Give us some of your experiences with the homeless. I know you used to walk around the city and find folks. Give us a taste of some of the folks that you need. Find that there's a need and whatever, and then they can start popping those up, and you can show how you're trying to meet these needs. And
Yes, sir.
we can do 8 minutes of that,
Okay.
and then we'll come back with this 10 minutes and talk about other things.
That'll
Okay?
work. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is excellent. This is excellent and so we're going to be able. We can start off, and I can welcome them back, and et cetera. And then at some point, you're going to, and I'll just mention, the fact that you want me to direct him to those.
If you want to, or we can give it about 20, 30 seconds and just take it.
Okay, well that sounds. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, give it about 20, 30 on camera and take it.
Okay.
A little under a minute.
So when you hit me the questions, when I see them pop up, I'll just defer to what the things I see, and I'll narrate according to I'll
what you
lead it
see.
in that direction. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is housing for the homeless, and we're fortunate to have with us Reverend Jeffrey Carr from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, who has given us some information in reference to his background, education, and experiences. And so what we'd like to do now is to talk about housing for the homeless. Talk about some of your experiences in reference to the homeless population.
Indeed, Doc. Well, Infinity Fellowship is a body that's dedicated toward taking what we share in common and taking social action with it. And one of the things that we want to provide is something that Sister Vicolin Abdullah, a friend of mine who's a member, says is homefulness. So you don't just say something is wrong with the world. You find a way to fix what's wrong with the world, and you do it affirmatively. So Dwayne Jones, who's a buddy of mine from Memphis, Tennessee, and I had traveled to Haiti to do work there. We built some housing there. We built some tent cities there. And Dwayne had this idea to build these micro homes. And I said, well, we want to be involved with that. Infinity is very much about the youth and the young people and providing new kind of opportunities for people to evolve spiritually. One of those ways is by going out into the community and doing community-based initiatives where people who may not have the safety of a home that we have here. So I pitched the idea to fundraisers and people. We said, well, let's do something interesting. Let's find Nashville's tent city and find a way to provide them with some permanent houses. So we started that campaign, and that's what ended up resulting in Infinity Village. I lived in a space. It's a picture from one of the spaces that I lived in there. I lived in a space for 45 days, and then we raised over $60,000, and Dwayne and I, who you see there in the picture, we put the village together. That's the first completed Infinity Village that replaced the tent city that was dispersed in Nashville during the flood. And we worked together to put these houses in place. And now everyone who lives in the house has an insulated building. They have electricity wired for the houses. They have laminate floors. They have a drop-down Murphy bed. And it's so much better than sleeping on the ground in a tent, especially with the weather as it's been lately. So we want to continue to find a way to provide innovative solutions to social problems. And we prove with this project that it doesn't take a lot of bureaucracy. It doesn't take a lot of red tape. All it takes is a few people deciding that we want to take action, identifying what the need is, and then putting our hands in place with people who are of a unitary mind and making things happen. We did the entire project for Infinity Village in about 7 weeks. From the time I moved into the micro home to the time that I moved out, it took us 10 days to build 6 homes. And we worked pretty much around the clock during those 10 days, and we put them in place in August of 2015. And since then, it sparked a national trend for people around the country who now want to do something similar, to not provide a permanent solution to homelessness, but to provide at least a temporary step up for people where they can have transitional housing and move from living in a car or a tent or a crawl space into living in a solid home where they can have an address and they can get a job, to moving back into affordable housing and back to the workplace. We'd be surprised that in Nashville, between 2,000 and 4,000 people a night are classified as homeless. And when I was living in the micro home, I found that I was doing what a normal homeless person would do. My wonderful wife, Kanitha, was, taking care of, we've got 5 kids, and she, through that project, made sure that they were taken care of. But I was showering at the gym, getting my shave in, sometimes in a bathroom when I needed to. And I met people who are going to work every day in corporate America, wearing suits, doing what they need to do, who were showering at the gym, eating lunch at work, and then going home at night and sleeping in their car, and people didn't even know it. And so they would come to me and say, thank you for doing something about this, because you'd be surprised the number of people in Nashville that look really good but are struggling.
How much does it cost to construct one of these houses?
Raw materials, you can construct one between $4,000 and $6,000. We used about $7,000 per house because we hired a professional crew. If you can do it yourself and you are a construction person and you're licensed and you know how to put these houses together, you can do it a little cheaper than that. Some people call for volunteers to do it now. We didn't want to use volunteers in this particular manifestation because we wanted to make sure that we could stand behind the construction on every house. And sometimes when you have volunteers do mean well, but they might cut short on a measurement and not think that when the wind blows, that little half-inch gap is going to make a difference between whether the house is standing or falling.
But what you're saying here is that you found a way that you can economically supply a need that is that's much greater in a real sense than somebody being able to live on the streets.
Yes, indeed.
And that brings a lot of dignity.
Yes.
In a real sense, back to individuals who find that they have their own individual space and life and secure in a real sense. Is that what you find in reference to?
It is. It's an issue of human dignity, Doc. And when you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about your hopes, your dreams, your family's future, you're thinking about your career and the things that motivate you, that's a lot. It's already a lot. And when you're gifted with being able to lay your head down at night in a solid place that's going to be consistent, that helps you to live those. But when the first thing that you're thinking about when you get up in the morning is, where am I going to sleep tonight?
That's exactly.
How am I going to eat? How am I going to navigate my dreams in a world where being homeless, being out of doors, being poor is criminalized? Then that's a whole lot to put on somebody's plate. But when you provide them with housing, we see that every research study, including the one that Vanderbilt did last summer, has concluded the same thing, that the number one way that you deal with the issue of homelessness, whether that's regular people or whether that's people in the lower economic strata or whether it's veterans, is to provide housing. I mean, it's simple, right? We spent $500,000 to find out that the way you stop homelessness is with a home. But it's true.
That's so extraordinary, too, in reference to how easy it is. Well, not easy to concept and et cetera, but after the concept has been laid out and has been proven that this is a successful way of doing it, then it seems so very, very simple.
It's simple, and of course, there are details. It's not easy to build a house.
Very good.
It's easy for people who know how to build houses.
That's right.
So you get
right.
the people, you partner with people, but with Infinity, the concept that we've been talking about is everybody contributing something. So there were people who wrote a check for $5,000, and they said, I'm basically going to cover a house. There were homeless people from Mexico who put a check on for $5 and said, I want to live in the U.S. one day. I appreciate what you're doing. What we saw in Living Motion was the African proverb, when spider webs unite, they can restrain a lion.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. about housing the homeless, but social situations and, you know, what's going on in Detroit now. If, you know, you've got some information, some thoughts in reference to what's going on about that and how, just anything that you want to talk
pull it
about.
together.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes,
Because I
sir.
think that it's some things that folks ought to hear.
Yes, sir.
And they can't hear it enough, you see. And I think that being homeless and without drinking water and
Oh, man.
these are the kind of
drinking
things
water,
that folks
man,
ought to.
is-
Can you imagine that? I mean, not being able to wash your face. You can't wash your face out of a crystal bottle of crystal water.
Yeah, or
You
your
know,
kid, or your kids are going to be damaged for
Mm-hmm.
generations for the rest of their life. 9,000 kids are going to be damaged because the city made a decision.
So let's
to
talk
let
about
y'all
this
drink
within.
some messed up.
We're going to talk about this for 10 minutes within
Okay.
the concept of the social kind of situation, dealing with housing, unemployment, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, some kind of things that you know about.
Okay.
Because you've lived and been in there. You've sat in one of these little houses for a long time, and that means a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so we've got those houses on this tape here.
Okay.
I'm so glad you could come,
You
man.
guys gonna want pictures this time?
Doc, I'm glad to be
Yeah,
around.
if you can.
You want to show out whatever pops up, I'll narrate them. Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back and I'll open it up
Okay.
for the third segment. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Reverend Jeffrey Carr, and he's giving us some information in reference to housing for the homeless. And he's also given us some information in reference to some of the social and economic situations that many individuals who are homeless find themselves in. And perhaps you might have something to say over the last 10 minutes in reference to the social situation that we find ourselves in today and how what you're doing is it's very, very important, but in terms of the dollar outlay, when you talk about constructing a house for $7,000 and et cetera, the possibilities and et cetera, talk about social situations that we might be able to deal with, not only there, but other areas.
Well, yeah, Doc, well, at some point, we have to find a way to funnel and tunnel the disgust and the rage that we often find with people who are talking about social justice issues. We have to funnel that into tangible ways to heal. Because, of course, we know that there are some horrible things going on in the world today. There's homelessness, there's crime, there's drug abuse and use. There are social situations that are happening with municipalities. If we talk about what happened in Detroit and Flint with the water supply being poisoned and it being okay for these kids to have these birth defects, there are things that will make you angry about the world. One of the concepts at Infinity is that, yes, you have things going on here, but how can we take an affirmative approach to solving and addressing these problems? And when you take an affirmative approach, then you learn to not only speak things into existence, but put things into existence. So if we say, here's a problem, but if it's fueled with rage with no solutions, then all that does is continue the cycle
same
of
problem.
rage, right? But if you fuel it with solutions, then you bring about hope. And when hope comes up, you see you can solve any problem that you face. So when we talk about how to do that affordably, it's about focusing, building with partners to make good things happen. One of the things that Infinity is working on now is building a holistic community center where we can address issues like homelessness, where we can address issues like teen violence. In 2015, there were over 70 murders in the city of Nashville, up from 40 plus in 2014. Many of them were young people. That's unacceptable. We can't have that anymore. So one of the projects that we're doing is we're addressing that, and we're doing another GoFundMe campaign. If people want to support that and be a part, I just encourage them to go to the website. Our website is myif.org, myif.org. It's a simple way to look and see the programs that we're doing at myif.org, which, and if is for Infinity Fellowship. When we think about the programs that we do there, we're very much concerned with innovative approaches to old problems. So if you realize that recreation helps kids stay off the street, and you're playing basketball and pool, but you have some centers there. What if you created a pool, a place where people could learn how to do meditation and how to do yoga and how to do conflict resolution and have people come in like Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who has volunteered to come in and teach people the King principles of nonviolence. If you have people who come in and teach martial arts, people who come in and teach mathematics, computer coding, all of these innovative ways to engage young people, performing arts. We've seen that when you give people a chance to show out on a stage, they won't show out on the street because that's all they're looking for is an opportunity to be seen, right?
That's right.
So you give people say, hey, look, I see you and I see the real you, and I'm going to give you that opportunity. And that's what we're about, and that's what we're building on now, and relying on the entire community of Nashville to assist us in doing so. And our model makes it easy to do because we're an interfaith group. So we have people from all different faiths who are gathering together to work on this. So we're not divided by some of the things that often divide us, which include religion. So religion, social class, Infinity is a body of multicultural people from all economic levels and all faith backgrounds who are just focused on doing some good stuff.
And so, Jeff, you're still doing good. You know, as you were doing good when we first met you, and you've been doing good all of your life, and now you think that you've reached a solution in terms of how to touch more people and to reach out, and people are being influenced by some of the things that you're doing. Is that what we're saying?
What I've come to know as truth is that we are defined by our actions. One of the things that I learned in theater is that there are three ways that you define a character in a play. What the playwright says about the character, which is in the action, what the character says about themselves, and what other people say about the character. So just like Shakespeare said, the whole world is a stage. When we look at that, it's the same way. Our actions define who we are. What we say about ourselves define who we are, and what other people say defines who we are. So I'd like to think that I learned from great teachers like you and other people who were models in the community that you put your words into action, and that demonstrates. And I'd like to think that people who are around me would affirm that I'm hanging in there pretty good and still staying with the dream.
As a matter of fact, Jeff, you're here today primarily because we were able to catch you between events.
Yes.
And that somehow you were involved in a conversation with somebody way across the world, in a real sense, across the nation today, dealing with some of the issues and some of the problems. What was that all about?
I've got a friend who is with the University of Missouri St. Louis, and they've got a partnership with St. Louis Public Schools. So I'm working on a project with them to help them deal with how they engage students in a brand new way, and how we can shape and reshape education to really reach people who are marginalized. And so I'm excited about that project. I get to work with people in projects like that. I get to work in housing projects with people, and it's just a great opportunity to go out and reach people and interact with young people and teach them about everything from wealth building to investment to community development to college and how to go and navigate your way to college. I'm in a great position to live out what I hope will be a long life, but to live the rest of my life doing good. And Infinity Fellowship has blessed me to be able to do that. And in a year, we've grown from about 5-6 people that started to about 125 now. And I think that people are responding to a message that is uplifting and affirmative and gives them something to get their hands dirty with.
You know, my granddaughter once said on one of these shows that, and she was 8 years old at this time, that I've seen it all. And I thought about that in dealing with you. You've seen it all. But there are young people today who've not seen it all. And what would your message be to young people, teenagers and et cetera, that are not focused and not directed, and you've got 2.5 minutes to talk to them in reference to what they ought to do?
I would say that the thug mentality is not limited to young people. And we think it is, but it's really not. They're modeling after adults. And we've got thugs who exist in suits. See, the word thug comes from the Thuggee cult, which was a British. They had a problem with the British and the British Empire in India, but it really comes from the ancient Sanskrit, which comes from stagati. That's the root word, etymologically speaking. And so stagati means one who conceals. That's all it is. So all of this tough stuff is to conceal something that is inside, which is really a human being who is crying to be seen and heard. So a lot of us are concealing ourselves behind our clothes, behind our jobs, behind our titles. So we're doing the same thing. We're just not out in the street acting out. So I say to the young people to shed that mentality. It's basically understanding that you're made in the image and likeness of God, however and whatever you perceive that to be, and that because of that, you have the ability to be great. And all you have to do is to embrace that thought process and be involved in creating the world that you want.
And so there's no limit in terms of what you might do or where you started from or who your parents might be and et cetera. It can all be up to you, and you can do great things simply by making a decision to do so.
The decision, it's all connected. That's why the organization I'm with is Infinity. Infinity is a symbol that has no beginning and no end, and it's constantly connected to the universe, and it goes on forever. Limitless and abundant, that's what it's all about. It's about understanding that. And if a guy can sit here and be a founder of a fellowship like this, and be an actor and be a playwright and all of this, he comes from two parents who had a 6th and a 10th grade education between them, and grew up working class in South Nashville, which means poor in this day and age. But I tell people, if I've been through that and I'm where I am, then you can be whatever you want to be.
And I think we can all echo that and say amen.
Yes, sir.
And let me thank you for coming by and giving us that excellent information in reference to housing and some of the other issues that we've talked about today. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is bicycling out west, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about an odyssey that he engaged in quite recently, Alvin Haney, who will give us some information in reference to how he became involved in bicycling, as well as some of the activities that have been associated with his trip across the western parts of the United States. And of course, AJ, let me welcome you to the show this morning and tell you how delighted we are to have you with us this morning, and to see if you might give us some information in reference to your background, your education, and some of your experiences during this first segment. And then we'll have an opportunity to talk about bicycling out west and other things associated with this activity.
Okay, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. Dr. Haney, or Daddy as I know you.
Very good.
As you know, we moved here to Nashville, Tennessee in the early 70s. I guess it was around 72, 73. Went through my schooling in Metro Nashville Public Schools. Graduated there, went on to Tennessee State University. Spent a few years working, and then was lucky enough to get hired by Metro Nashville Public Schools myself, and am a 7th grade science teacher at Meigs Magnet Middle School here in Nashville, and I've been doing that for 22 years. So that's how I ended up here in Nashville. I found myself at Meigs enjoying dealing with athletes. I coached the track team, did a little coaching of cross country as well, and that kept me out and being active. As you know, a lot of my athletic, I guess, prowess came from you, kind of watching you be an athlete throughout your adult life, and it made me want to go out and pursue that myself. After many years of, running and doing a lot of activity like that, basketball and such, I found myself a lot of knee problems. So the knee issues started to stack up. I ended up having 2 or 3 surgeries actually, and on the third one, the doctor said I got to find something else to do. And I asked for a suggestion. His suggestion was bicycling, and so I got on the bicycle back in 2008 and haven't stopped since.
And you've been almost everywhere riding that bicycle, and I've always wondered exactly how in the world you become so committed to riding off to Memphis and wherever and riding every day. But of course, you became involved in it, and I think that you've been involved. When did you first start bicycling as such?
Well, I've always had a bike growing up. I always loved to ride road bikes. Not done much mountain biking, but to ride on road bikes was something that I'd always done. So I'd always ridden around Nashville. That was my mode of transportation. Didn't really have a automobile, so I would ride everywhere. During my years at Tennessee State University, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, back in 1989 decided, hey, let's do something crazy. Let's ride our bike from here to Memphis. And nobody believed that we actually did it or that it could be done, but we got on our bikes then and we started what we call the Bike-a-thon. So the Bike-a-thon from Nashville to Memphis happens the second week in September every year. It's associated with the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis, Tennessee. So we take off on a Thursday night. We ride 100 miles, 120 miles to Jackson, Tennessee. We spend a couple hours there, get a little rest, and then we get up and ride the rest of the 60 miles into Memphis. And we've done that continuously every year since 1989. So I was one of the founding members there to start that, and that kind of got my interest in, well, I can, don't have to ride just around Davidson County. I can ride all over the United States. So that was kind of my start. So did that for a few years. Then again, after the knee issues came up and decided that I wanted to look for something bigger and better. In 2008, 2009, I would go on what we call century rides, do a 100-mile ride here and there, do 2 or 3 of those a year, and I was really looking for some more. And so I stumbled across the Fuller Center organization in 2013, I believe, and saw that they had something where they would ride all the way across the country, and thought that that would be something that would be really challenging for me, and wanted to see if I could pursue that.
And so this is an activity that we're going to deal with in the second segment, because I think that you've got some images of you and the work that you are doing around the Fuller Center, Corporation, and et cetera, and how important that is. And so why don't you make a statement over the last 30 seconds in reference to Fuller Corporation itself. What is that?
The Fuller Center for Housing was founded by Millard and Linda Fuller. They're the same persons who started the Habitat for Humanity back in 1976. In 2005, he left the Habitat for Humanity and decided that he wanted to start his own thing, and that's where we got the Fuller Center for Housing.
Okay, very good. And of course, we want to take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Thank God, and I'm so glad that, oh my, he brought his servant angels to and fro, and I'm hoping that he will guide and direct you back home safely. I am, oh my Lord, my God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, merciful Father. Thank you for your servants that come to and fro to help another servant, Lord.
I see the work of your hands. galaxies spinning a heavenly dance. Oh God, all that you are is so overwhelming. I delight myself in you, captivated by your beauty. I'm overwhelmed by you. And God, I run into your arms, unashamed because of mercy. I'm overwhelmed by you. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress for the night with the driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring it home. Face down in the desert now. There's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop the keys.
My name is Debbie Gott. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I'm with the Illinois Valley Fuller Center for Housing. We do work for veterans. Veterans is our main focus. We also do furnace checks in the fall to make sure that their furnaces are efficiently running. We help people. We meet all kinds of people like Oscar that we're doing this work for. Oscar never had running water for 10 years. He wanted this stuff taken out in front. He was being cited by the city for the garage. That's why we're replacing the roof today.
Be the one to light the way, bring it home. And when you call and need me near, saying where'd you go, brother, I'm right here. And on those days when the sky begins to fall, you're the blood of my blood. We can get through it all. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I could be the one to call when you feel alone. Brother, let me be your fortress. When the night will darken on. Be the one to light the way. Bring it home.
Another servant, Lord. Thank you. In Jesus' name, Father, we pray. Amen. Amen.
Jesus loves me, yes,
It's just the impact that you make in children's lives. It's amazing. The change that you see is incredible.
Bring your tithe and bring your shame. Bring your guilt and bring your pain. Don't you know that's not your name? You will always be much more to me. And every day I wrestle with the voices that keep telling me I'm not right. But that's alright, 'cause I hear a voice and it calls me every day. When others say I'll never be enough. And greater is...
So KPC, we are named after Kevin Petricella, and that was a child that passed away from being shaken allegedly at the hands of his grandparents. His parents wanted a place where when parents were frustrated, they had a place to go. 24 hours, doesn't matter what time they call us. If they're at that point, we come here. And that way they can take care of themselves. Because when parents can take care of themselves and they have that self-care, they can better take care of their children.
Bring your doubts, bring your fears, bring your hurt, and bring your tears. There'll be no condemnation here. You are holy, righteous, and redeemed. And every time I fall, there'll be those who will call me a mistake. Well, that's okay, 'cause I hear a voice and he calls me redeemed. When others say I'll never be enough, and greater is the one living inside of me than he who is living in the world.
It's really important to make sure that the center's safe. So all the repairs are 100% necessary. It's going to make such a difference in the outside, making sure that the play equipment is safe. That's the biggest thing. We really thank you guys for coming because we really need it.
I'm working up a little sweat here.
Children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough.
Oh, this is super. This saved us so much money, time, and improved this for the community. Thank Fuller. Thank you, Fuller.
Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alvin Haney, and he's giving us some information in reference to bicycling out west, a trip that he and members of his organization took going from one part of the West to another. And AJ, I think what you ought to do is to simply inform our audience in terms of bicycling out west. Where did you start from and how long did you go and that kind of information?
Okay, well, let me start with, this is my third year participating in the Fuller Center Bike Adventure. Previous 2 years, I've done segments from Boise, Idaho. I've done segments starting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and going to Chicago, Illinois. And so last summer, that was, I guess, my year to do it all. I wanted to go all the way instead of just doing a week or two. I decided to take up a 10-week journey and traveling from Oceanside, California to Portland, Maine. So, along with that, of course, comes different challenges in trying to, first of all, raise money because, the main purpose of this is to support the Fuller Center for Housing, to spread the word about what they do and what the organization is all about. And so I did have to raise, it was mandatory that each whole way rider, as we call it, raise $4,000. So I did end up, with generous support from people at school, friends and family. I was able to raise that amount of money and a little bit more. But that money, of course, goes towards the Fuller Center. So to raise the money was one challenge. To be physically ready for, a 3,000 mile, actually a 4,000 mile bike trip, that was another challenge.
That's actually riding a bicycle 4,000 miles.
4,000 miles, right. And then there's the challenge of, living kind of as a community with people I don't know. I have one friend of mine from Nashville who's also associated with the Fuller Center, and we ride here locally. He came in and he did 2 weeks with me, but the other 8 weeks I was kind of be on my own. With you have to live with people, you have to be able to, you ride with them during the day, but then in the evenings we have these generous host churches that take us in, and we sleep on the floor. We sleep on the church pews. We, eat the meals provided, to us by them. And again, they were very generous, and found ourselves overwhelmed with the generosity of just the people in the country. As you go across the country, and people are willing to take care of you. They're willing to take out of their lives and their time to help somebody who's helping others, and that was really inspiring for me. I got out to California, I guess June 3rd of last summer, and in Oceanside, California is kind of where we started. We went down to the ocean and we dipped our back tire into the ocean, saying that, hey, we're starting from the back here, and we're going to go there at the Pacific Ocean, and we're going to go to the Atlantic Ocean. After dipping our tire into the ocean, we took off. We started pedaling, and each day we averaged around 80 miles. There were some days where it was only 40 or 50, but there were some days where it was 90 or 100 miles. So, the average ended up being 80 miles per day. We traveled across the state of California, got to go to Palm Springs, California, and see the vastness there, where right there in the middle of the desert, here's a town, here's a city, and it's a nice city as well. Got to go to the Grand Canyon. We did end up spending a couple nights in the Grand Canyon. Some of the people that were with me hiked down to the bottom and back. I found myself not wanting to do any hiking after you had just biked, 80 or 90 miles just for that day. Most of our weeks ended up being, 300 plus mile weeks on the bicycle. So the weekends that we had off, I was ready to sit down. We incorporate, of course, build days within there. One of our first build days was in Palm Springs. A build day could consist of just doing yard work. It can consist of painting. It consists of, putting in fixtures for people, doing wheelchair ramps, in Palm Springs, we actually put a fence. We replaced a fence around a house. We went on, of course, to Colorado, in Colorado Springs, and I believe that you all had a video of that. That was one of the places where we helped with a respite house where, if families in need I guess, a time away from their children. If they find themselves kind of at wit's end, they can go there at any time of the day or night and just kind of drop their children off. So they needed a safe, comfortable place for those children to be. When we got there, the backyard was in disrepair, and although they had a place for the children to play in the backyard, it really wasn't a safe place, and it definitely wasn't a clean place. So, just going in there, pulling up some weeds, taking the outdoor play equipment and repainting it, going inside and doing, again, light fixtures, painting, whatever we could do to, help these people, to help, really it's just one house at a time. And that's what the Fuller Center mission is. It's about helping people have a safe place to live, just one house at a time. That's kind of the core mission of what they do. Went from there, of course, all the way across Kansas, and Kansas is just like they say in the movies, kind of got caught in a tornado or two, and with the wind blowing, we pulled over and rested until the wind passed, and we got back on our bikes and we rode. We rode whether it was raining or sunny, as long as there was no lightning, we were pedaling our bikes. We got to Illinois. Peoria, Illinois was another one of the stops that was most memorable for me. Stopping in Peoria, we got to help a former Army veteran, Mr. Oscar, I can't remember his last name, but going to his house, I think the city was about to actually to condemn his house or his whole property because of the fact that the garage was falling apart. The roof was in disrepair, and they were just, it was just not a safe place, not only to park a car, but the inside of his house as well to live. The Fuller Center Covenant Partner, which is kind of like the local chapter there, the Covenant Partner in Fuller Center, the Covenant Partner in Peoria, Illinois, they specialize in helping veterans. And so Oscar was one of the veterans that we helped that day, and just seeing the joy in his face when he, saw these 30 people in orange, get out of the vans and say, hey, we're here to help you. He was overwhelmed, and we were overwhelmed as well. I had never put on a roof before or seen, what goes into it, but, we learned how to do that. Of course, there are some skilled laborers there, but most of us are people who don't have many skills. We may know a few things here and there about home repair and about fixing up things, but we kind of learned as we did. So, to tear the whole roof off and to put a new one on, as we were tearing it off, here comes, possums out at the top of his roof. And so we had to deal with the possum and trying to, get him off the property. I think I spent most of that day at the wood chipper. So every branch that they cut down, I put it through the chipper, and we, made pieces out of it. And then we had to bag it up. And so I think that was my 8-hour day on a wood chipper, which, again, we do that so that we can help others. Continued, of course, across the country, through Illinois, through Indiana, stopped in Ohio. Stopping in Ohio, I got to actually see one of the families that we had helped the previous year. In Ohio, the community that we stopped in the previous year, I got to help this lady who's a babysitter, and ended up meeting her and, communicating with her, through social media and such, and let her know I was in town, and she invited me over and said, hey, she couldn't wait to see, to see me again, and for me to see her, to see how we had helped her by fixing up her house the year before, and made a lifelong friend. And so, the Fuller Center for Housing is just about helping people, about providing the community with a safe place to live.
Anybody who might wish to become involved in the Fuller Center or might want to assist the center in identifying individuals, what would you say to them over the last minute that we have?
Okay, we also have the Fuller Center for Housing, a local covenant partner. The Fuller Center for Housing of Middle Tennessee, of which I'm a part of, we are actually seeking applicants who need help. So if there's anyone that needs some help, our email address is middletennessee@fullercenter.org. They can contact us there. We have a P.O. Box in Antioch, P.O. Box 2280, Antioch, Tennessee 37011. We would be glad to help some families locally as well.
All they have to remember is the Fuller Center and Habitat for the Humanities is not part of it, but it came out of that
Right, came out of
group,
that,
and
right. So
then they can submit an application and y'all can help them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help families here in Middle Tennessee.
Well, AJ, let me thank you over the last 10 seconds that we have here for giving us that excellent information and allowing us to see some of the activities, and especially to inform me in reference to some of your activities over the last many, many years. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week to another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.